Hey, what's going on everyone? It's Stranger here, and in today's tutorial we're going to be doing a drum programming exercise on making a trap beat. And with a trap beat, I'm talking about those kind of rap beats that you hear in current rap songs such as this one. So today's going to be just the basics of trap, how we create that basic trap beat. And the first thing is, how do we find the right samples? Because selecting the correct drum samples is important in making the trap beat. And there's some resources on the net where you can get those samples. For example, we can go to Reddit. There's a channel called Drum Kits, and people are posting free drum kits all the time. For example, we see the drum kit for Smoke Perp here. There's a drum kit for Kill Station and whatnot. There's tons of drum kits here. They're all for free. Another place we can look is on soundpacks.com. If we click over here under search and hit trap, there's tons of trap packs here. A good one that I've used before is called the 808 Trap Step Pack Volume 2. And there's lots more here. So there's a couple of free resources that you can get. Trap drum kits. Of course, you can also get paid trap drum kits on Splice.com and even on Loop Masters. So that's just a few spots where you can grab some trap samples. And so once you have the samples, then it's selecting the right hits. So I'm just going to start by pulling in drum rack over here. I'm just going to get rid of these other template channels. So I'm going to be doing everything in one drum rack, but if you're a more advanced user, then you know that it's better to have a dedicated channel per sound when you're creating drums. But just for simplicity, and so you can see how everything is laid out on the MIDI clip, I'm going to put all my hits in one drum rack. So I actually have a bunch of trap sounds already selected in my favorites. I have some kicks that I can search for. Usually the trap kicks are a bit tighter, sharper. So I can select that one. Sometimes I'd like to select two so we can try a couple for our beat. And then the next step is to select a snare. So we can go over the snare here. Of course, you're going to be looking under your folder. You might have to add your folder here. I have my favorites selected already. And of course, the trap snares are also sharper in sound. That's a popular trap snare. I'll pull that over. I'll pull another one. Okay. And sometimes in trap, they use the clap instead of the snare. So I'm going to pull in a clap. That's a good one. Let's see if that's also a good one. And finally, we're going to look for a hi-hat. And the first step is to choose a closed hi-hat. Typically, the hi-hats used in trap are 808 hi-hats. They're those thinner, more metallic sounding hi-hats like this one. So that's a closed hi-hat. It's also nice to have an open hi-hat, so I'm going to look for that. That's good. Now, we have to talk about tempo. For most trap music, it's played at a slower tempo, sometimes at 60 beats per minute, sometimes at 70 beats per minute. So it's at a really slow tempo. However, when we're sequencing a trap beat, we're actually sequencing it in halftime. The reason why we do this is doing it in halftime allows us more flexibility in the MIDI clip to place more hits in between the beats. So what I mean by that is, although a beat may be playing at 60 beats per minute, we're actually sequencing that at 120. Or if you're making a trap beat that's at around 70 beats per minute, then you want to set your BPM at 140. So whatever the actual groove is that you want for the beat, you multiply that by 2. So I'm going to make mine at 140 beats per minute. And then I'm just going to double click here to create a new MIDI clip. And then what I'll do first is I'll add a hi-hat. And I'll put my hi-hat at the 8th note position. And actually, I'm going to make this 2 bars. So under length, I'm going to hit 2. So the reason is that a typical beat is 1 bar. But since we're at halftime, 2 bars at halftime is really 1 bar. So I'm just going to draw a bunch of hi-hats here at the 8th note position, and I'll play. Okay. So that's how the hi-hats sound. The next step is to place the snare, the main snares, which is at beat 2 and beat 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the half note position. So we can see that looking at the half note position, this is beat 1, this is beat 2, this is beat 3, and this is beat 4. So if there's a snare on beat 2 and beat 4, can you guys take a guess where the snare would be placed here? Well, if you guessed correctly, then the snare goes here and here. Okay, so now let's listen to what we have. Okay, so far so good. And then the next step is to add your kick. And there's usually almost always a kick on the very first beat. So by default, I'm just going to hit a kick here. And then I'm going to just change my grid pattern to 8th notes, just to shorten this, just so it's easier to see everything. Your notes don't have to stretch all the way. In drum rack, it's going to play anyway, so you don't have to extend your notes. So this is what we have. Okay, now we have to add additional kicks, and with the additional kicks, there's no hard rule. We can experiment, but logical placements would be here. So now we have this. Another placement is possibly here, so we can have multiple kicks. And actually, I'm going to try another snare. I'm going to highlight these two, use my arrow key, and move it up here. Actually, let's hear how the clap sounds. Sometimes we can layer the clap with the snare. So now we have this. Now you can experiment with these kicks, and perhaps you want to try, we can move it here on a ghost note position. We can also try something like this. The possibilities are endless. So that's a cool double kick, so you can have one of these patterns. Now I'm gonna adjust the mix of my drums a little bit. I'm finding one of the snares to be a bit loud. Okay, and with trap, the next step is playing a little more with your hi-hats. And what's popular in modern trap is to add these hi-hat rolls that play at a very fast speed. So I'm going to choose the 1/32nd view. And what I mean by these hi-hats is something like this. So here we have, now you can experiment. I'm just selecting spots. We can go here. So notice that I put 3 hi-hats very quickly together. It's more common to put 3 than 4. Some people will put 4 like that, but that's totally possible too. I personally like the 3 hit. Gives a nice roll. Sometimes you can put a double hi-hat like that. Sometimes you can do a double triple like that, so you have triple triple. And then finally, another trick with a trap is we can add triplets with the hi-hats. So I'm going to right click, choose my triplet view, increase the size of my grid here. You can also select 1/8 notes to increase the size. And then at the very end, I'm going to choose a triplet position. Now listen how that will all sound. Notice how the end, that triplet gives it a nice little swing. That's iconic in the trap sound. Notice my hi-hat sound is a bit quiet, and as opposed to raising it in the fader, I'm going to go into my drum rack, look for that hi-hat, and then I'm just go under volume, increase that to, there we go. I'm going to try switching the snare. That's sounding better. Okay, and then sometimes it's not mandatory. However, sometimes it's nice to add an open hi-hat into the clip. So now I'm going to switch off the triplet view, and then perhaps you want an open hi-hat here. And personally, when I have an open hi-hat, I don't play the closed hi-hat. So let's say I want an open hi-hat here, I can just move that here. So that's a logical position. You can also try this one. That sounded pretty good. So that's your basic trap beat here. You've learned about the hi-hat positions, adding the snare and the kicks, and once you have the basics, you can really experiment. There's probably an infinite amount of different patterns you can make with trap, but getting down the basics is where you'll have that understanding to really deviate from the basic foundations. So I really encourage you guys to practice the basics of this trap beat. Once you have the basics of a trap beat, then you can add an 808 bass line to it, which is what really seals the deal with the trap sound. I'm not going to go too in depth with 808 bass in this lesson, but I will add it just so you guys can hear. So I'm just going to pull in simpler, and I'm going to look for my 808 bass. Yeah, here we go. The reason why I pull in simpler is that with the 808 bass, you want to play a melody, right? You want to play different notes. I'm just going to increase the volume. Okay. Now again, I'm not going to go too in depth, but just so you can have something to try out on your own. I'm going to make that a bit longer, and then at the end. I'm gonna add a triplet here. Just to spice it up, I'm just gonna group these two. Again, I'm going a little more advanced just to give you guys a bit extra, but sometimes I might want to add some distortion to the group, give that really modern trap feel. So there you go. I now showed you guys the basics of creating a trap beat. I'm going to try to do a more advanced trap tutorial in a future video. But really practice, get that basics down, and then you're on your way to creating some more complex trap beats. So let me know how you guys do in the comments. If this video helped you out, be sure to like the video and subscribe to my page. And also comment and let me know what else you'd like to learn in future videos. And until then, we'll catch you at the next video.